are now watching this, oh no, we haven't done anything for the last half hour. By the way, they're the ones who I know watch this on stream after, but not now. They watch it tomorrow because it's currently, 2 in the morning for them right now. So they're going to watch it later. And so Karen and Jim, we didn't do anything over the last half hour. Basically, we were just talking about the NCAA basketball tournament. It's fine. Now we're just picking up with, here we are, Baba Metzia 30B. We haven't done anything. Right?
And Rabbi Yohanan said so.
Right, yeah, it's exactly right. And I say that in the name of Ned. Okay. So before it was it had to do with, let's call his integrity. These next few kind of talk about him in terms of maybe practicality and lenience. So it says that it was taught in the Baraita that they must perform. That is referring to acting beyond the letter of the law. As Rabbi Yochanan says, Jerusalem was destroyed only for the fact that they adjudicated cases on the basis of strict Torah law in the city. Hold on. So let's stop for a second. So Rabbi Yochanan makes a claim that the reason why the temple was destroyed, now the common understanding of why the temple was destroyed is because of what's called sinat chinam, baseless hatred. The people were just hating each other for no good reason and arguing, and no one could get along, and for that reason the temple was destroyed. That's that's the way that our tradition thinks of it. I think we all can agree that that may have contributed to it. It's very possible that we were doing so much infighting that we became easy pickings for the Romans to come and destroy us because we couldn't even get along with each other. So there could be a fair amount of truth to it. We don't know. But the point is Rabbi Yochanan says, no, the reason why the temple was destroyed is because they adjudicated cases on the basis of strict Torah law. Now, it is hard to imagine that a rabbi of the quality and distinction of Yochanan would object to us adjudicating cases on the basis of strict Jewish law, right? That's kind of like a good thing. It's like we are holding to our principles, and this is how we adjudicate cases. But Yochanan disagrees. He says, rather, so then the Gemara asks, again, this is the anonymous, just voice narrator of the Gemara, probably some called the Stamim, those later group that were kind of now organizing and putting it all together. But every once in a while they add their own little touch to it also. The Gemara asks, rather, what else should they have done? Like, what? Should they not? Should they have followed, strict, Quran law? Right? Like what?
Arbitrary.
Right. It says, right. And then it says those very words. Should they rather have adjudicated cases on the basis of arbitrary decisions? Shouldn't we have a standard by which we measure ourselves? Rather say that they established their rulings on the basis of Torah law, yes, but they didn't go beyond the letter of the law, right? In other words, they weren't open to nuance. They were so insistent on just what it says, right? And so that's kind of like, so the analogy would be,
I think that's a situation that's come down through the ages in justice systems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the Constitution says, right? Yeah, but
there's a strict interpretation of the Constitution, and then there's
the interpretive understanding, interpretation of the Constitution, and it's And what he's saying is they should have gone beyond, they should have seen past it. They should have seen more than just, this person has overstayed their visa by one day, and now they're illegal. Again, I don't mean it's not my intention. It's the only thing that just came to my mind. But like my point being is that like, okay, this person was legal. Now it expired. Today expired. Like we don't need to just literally. Why don't we just like consider what's going on here before we immediately go to but it says this day and that's it.
You know, it reminds me of two rabbis we studied, Shammai and
Hillel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one was strictly we're going to learn Torah by
Yes.
and one was the tent is bigger than that. We're going to let.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this is showing that he is more in the camp of Hillel.
Yeah.
And by the way, just to go back to that conversation, just because there are a few people who weren't here for this before, when talking the two true, I mean, again, there were some before Hillel and Shammai, but they are kind of thought of as those first two. And they had two very different ways of approaching Torah and the legal, and actually probably better would be than their kind of 2 generations later was Yehoshua and Eliezer, better described because those two guys who were the disciples of Hillel and the other one of Shammai, but what they both are legit. They were both, one said, these are the laws. Let's learn them perfectly. No deviating, because if we start playing around and doing interpretations, then slowly but surely, then these laws are going to get forgotten about, and it's going to now all be about interpretations and what this person wants to do, and you're going to make Shabbos for yourself, and you're going to make Shabbos for yourself, and then we're not even going to have a standard anymore. And Eliezer was like, we got to hang on to the standard. And Yehoshua said, why don't we just be more open? It doesn't have to, let's teach more people some. And Hillel and Shammai or Eliezer said, no, let's teach fewer people all. Meaning, let's make sure that we pass down everything to the next generation. And Yehoshua is saying, no, let's just teach as much as we can to everybody. And you could make very worthy arguments on both sides, yeah. And I can argue both sides very well. But most importantly though is you got to at least respect the other side. Mm-hmm. And if you can't at least appreciate what the other side is trying to say, because Eliezer saying, because it's very possible, look, Eliezer could have just been on the spectrum and utterly unable to just deviate from anything, or you could say he was just trying to make sure that we just knew all the stuff. He wanted to be the encyclopedia, so we had a record of all this stuff. And Yehoshua was like, God, you're being so strict all the time. Can we just make sure that Judaism is accessible to everybody and people have the right? And it's like, yeah, both sides. I agree with both sides. And here, Yochanan is, to some degree, it's not exactly the same. What he is saying is, you judges, you're just so stuck on the law. Can you not see nuance in some of these laws? Mm-hmm. And again, are they wrong? No, they're probably taught. This is the law. This is how you judge. This is how you determine if it's right or wrong. And this is, etc. And Yochanan's like, time to start using your brains a little bit more. It's not just what they said, but it's got to go beyond that. But I don't think Yochanan, though, is saying that we should not know the law, which no one's saying that, neither Hillel nor Yehoshua. But what they were saying it was more about how you teach and how you expand it to the masses. But in this case, I think what Yochanan is saying is it's a little bit more of a scathing attack of the judges, which is like, it's not okay for you just to think, oh, let me just, you did this and then this, and let's just flip, and then you go down the row, and that means 40 lashes, period, done. Okay, let's go get some lunch. It's like, you got to think, you got to use your brain. You can't just kind of just, take your cross chart and find what it is, and then there's your punishment. So it speaks to the fact that Yochanan was functioning, and he was able to criticize those people, speaks to the fact that he was functioning kind of in a more sophisticated, or at least thoughtful, or at least enlightened place than maybe a lot of them.
It brings to my mind that it's a good thing that we have people who had these discussions and passionately had them, because in a sense, maybe we needed both to get as far as we've gotten.
Yep. I think I used this analogy before, and I will say it again because it's the exact analogy. I may strongly disapprove of many of the things that the Orthodox Jews do. Strongly disapprove. But I thank God that they're there. Because if they're not there, I have nothing to push up against.
Right.
I have nothing to object to. I need them to object to them, right? I need them to have separate seating of men and women so I can say, that's ridiculous. I need them to have these absurd laws of kashrut so I can say, I cannot accept this.
So let me ask you a question. When you're with a rabbi, or there's a group of rabbis and half are Reformed and half are Orthodox, and we'll leave the.
It's very
Does
appreciative.
everybody respect everybody?
I get respected less than
Then they demand of you.
right. But I will say though, but I said that with a little bit of a joke because the truth is that the times in which I'm around Orthodox rabbis has always been, like the most number of times has always been in the context of Israel. Like I used to be the president of the Synagogue Division of Israel Bonds. We take an Israel, we go on the Israel trip, the Bonds trip, and got all these conservative Orthodox rabbis, and here I am the president. And oftentimes I am articulating a message about Zionism, about Israel, or coming up with a nuance, teaching something about Israel, and they don't know. And so it's what's funny is in many of my interactions, I've actually gotten a ton of respect from them.
So there were 3 denominations, but only everybody was Israelite.
Yeah, or everyone was Zionist. Yes, yeah. Israelite. Yes, but on the other hand, if I were to teach them Talmud, they would dismiss me. Or they would say, oh, sure, you know these stories, but you don't understand the law well enough. And so they would dismiss me about that. Although a really interesting story is that year when I was president, I got to make a lot of decisions about what we were doing on our trip. And always on the trip, there is some sort of a learning element. And the year that I was in charge, I went, and actually, well, maybe you do. One of the authors that I've recommended her, not Yochi Brandis, but Ruth Calderon.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Ruth Calderon.
Isn't she the one who taught Talmud to the?
Yes, to the Knesset ministers, and they hated it. But
they hated it.
Oh yeah, because they respected her, but they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it was and I had her teach us, and it was like. And the Orthodox rabbis are not like those crazies in the Knesset. On our trip, if you're an Orthodox rabbi, you're not insane. You're a very reasonable Orthodox rabbi. So this to be very clear. Yep. And so they handled it. They not only handled it, but they appreciated it. Mm-hmm. And they respected her very much, and they learned, and it was fabulous. But I intentionally said, we're learning from a woman. Because I was like, this is an important. I want to see what happens here. And they handled it fine. But let's keep going. So the next one, Jerusalem Talmud Peah. It says, and Torah study. They asked Rabbi Joshua, may a person teach Greek to his son? He said to them, he may teach him at an hour that is neither day nor night. As it is written, you shall meditate about it, meaning Torah, day and night. So as long as it's not day or night, you can teach your kid Greek, which is basically never. Right. If it is so, as in you shall meditate about it day and night. If it is so, a man would be forbidden to teach a profession to his son, since it is written, you shall meditate about it day and night. So there's pushback to Rabbi Joshua. No, excuse me. There's pushback to Rabbi Joshua about this, and they say, but Rabbi Ishmael stated, choose life. That refers to a profession. Rabbi Abba, son of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, in the name of Rabbi Chia, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, there we go, with the in the name of, because of informants. In other words, what they're saying is, no, it's okay to teach Greek to your children. That part is left out, but that's what the implication is. It's okay. It says, Ishmael says, choose life. That means that refers to a profession. So obviously, you can't be studying Torah day and night, and therefore, it's okay to teach Greek to your kids. And Rabbi Yochanan said, but it goes up a number of generations because of informants. In other words, if we speak the language of the people, we'll be better able to protect ourselves. Like if someone is informing on us, we can overhear that, and we can, and therefore be able to protect ourselves better because we know what's coming because they're speaking Greek, whatever.
Why wouldn't it be permissible to?
Because it's the language of the pagans. There's only Hebrew, but they're objecting to it.
Yeah.
Abahu, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. So this is also Rabbi Yochanan's thought, but told by Rabbi Abahu, said, a person may teach Greek to his daughter since it's an ornament for her. In other words, it makes her more attractive. You're more likely to marry off your daughter if she's more knowledgeable. So that one's not as, let's agree that
She can speak like the pig.
I'm not so sure I want to celebrate him for, oh yeah, it's good to teach Greek just so you can make your daughter more interesting to be married off of. Like that's not so great. But the point is that he is more practical and more lenient. He's like, yeah, it's okay to teach kids Greek. Yeah, make them more interesting people. It'll make them easier to listen in on. And another one, Avodah Zarah is the next one. And by the way, Avodah Zarah is the Hebrew word for idol worship. And so this whole chapter, or the tractate's on idol worship. And so the question is, in the days of Rabbi Yochanan, they started painting on walls, right? They painted their walls with images or with decorative patterns or whatever. And he did not protest against it. In other words, they were saying, oh no, you can't paint on the walls. That's idol worship. You have a picture on the wall. You're worshiping an idol. And he's like, no, it's not. It's okay. You can paint your walls. Right? Just another example of him being he was a little bit more chill and more lenient. He was just a little bit more aware of the people around him and what their needs were. And yeah.
It seems like a little different.
Rabbi, this is Charles. A quick question: Why did the Jerusalem ones not have the bold?
Because the Jerusalem Talmud was a little bit more thorough a little bit more descriptive in its words, so it's all
okay.
Mark,
That's what I thought.
Well, we were talking a second ago about one person interprets the Torah this way, one person goes that way, and one is more strict, let's say, and one is more lenient. But this one seems like, well, how do you interpret paintings on the wall? What is your justification for calling that an idol, a painting on the wall? Because I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form we should do idol worship, but I'm saying it's okay to have a painting on the wall.
And that's what he's saying.
Okay, but so he's just saying it's not an idol.
It's not an idol. It's like let's easy. You have people, or you're getting out of hand with you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't now you can't like it's like if we're gonna make our lives unbearable with all the you can'ts. It's okay to paint your walls. It's fine. It's not idol worship. So he was just. It's not about lenient, just more in touch with the people. I think he just kind of was thought of as was not. Even though he was this great scholar, again, the greatest in the Palestinian era, there was a part of him which was more just a regular human being.
Yeah.
And
So let me ask a question.
it kind of reminds me of, that they say that about Menachem Schneerson, the Rebbe of the Lubavitchers in Brooklyn, dead now for 20 or 25 years. But they used to say that he was kind of in touch with the people. And even though he was the supreme, everything was about him, they think of him as the Messiah.
Mhm.
but yet he kind of had a way in which people felt like he was very approachable, and he kind of knew what their issues and their problems were, and he wasn't just so high and mighty with. Again, I'm not celebrating Schneerson, I'm merely just kind of remembering what they used to say about him. What are you about to say? Sorry, Mark.
It just occurred to me, so all this happens between the rabbis, first the Tanaim and the Amorim. Who decided this during the temple era? When did the high priest get involved in all this
No,
stuff?
not at all. That was there were a few of them who were both, quote, rabbis and priests but no, it was people who were rejecting the priesthood. And it was like saw the writing on the wall. We need to revisit the way we do things.
So in the temple era, everybody just
Late temple era, late temple. So we're talking about the last
Well,
50 years of the temple.
in the early temple, earlier than that era, everybody just did what they kind of thought was
What the
right.
priests thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Maybe a Torah study, but sacrifice.
Yeah.
I think that another way to look at it is the kind of flipping it on its head. If you're trying to respect the rule about no idols, you take it to the next level,
Right.
and then you say, well, we shouldn't do this or that or that.
Right. That's so classic. Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk is what it says in the
Yeah.
Torah, and yet
Right.
now we're
Yeah,
not
right.
eating a
Kosher.
chicken sandwich with cheese on it. And
Yeah.
right, it's like that's kid nor milk. So you're right, but you would think that they would be more careful. And Yochanan was like saying, it's like the train is without brakes here. We're not stopping. We got to calm down here.
But sometimes that kind of thinking is useful.
Which one? The stricter interpretation?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, to keep us
one-
from violating.
Like I think of the one where the rule, like you can't go on the street that has the prostitutes on it.
Right.
Just because you can't go to the prostitute, now you can't go to the street with the prostitute on it, and that
Correct.
keeps you out of trouble.
That is, again, the principle in Judaism of siag l'Torah, fence around the Torah. If you don't want someone to touch this button, then don't say you can come into this room. Lock the door.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes it's useful.
Right. Yes, it can be useful for sure. But in Yochanan, maybe was in this particular case just kind of feeling like it was too much. But you're right. There were others who were objecting to him. He was just one voice. I'm giving you his side of it.
So I think it's back to that other comment about performing, and not just the letter of the law, but thinking it all
Nuance,
about.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then does that not then go beyond that building a fence around the Torah is in fact beyond the letter of the law?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's for
a
sure.
set of laws
It's for sure
down the
beyond.
line.
But
If
you're
they're
performing,
because
you're
remember,
thinking about
remember
whether,
these early
whether
rabbis were studying
has to do it on
Torah,
the
they're
basis
studying
of
Torah,
Torah
studying
law.
Torah, studying Torah, and what they determined was we can start coming up with laws based upon our interpretation of the Torah, right? And so suddenly, out of nowhere, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk took on a whole new level of you can't mix any type of poultry and dairy. Now, again, and that was one example. It says you build a booth we built booths in the wilderness, and now we have the dimensions of a sukkah. In other words, right? It's like they went to town on the Torah and turned it into a whole legal system because they knew that sacrifice wasn't lasting, and they also knew, by the way, because they were inspired by the first generation of the first temple exiles who went to Babylonia and then became Persia and then came back and rebuilt the temple. But they were living a life without a temple for 50 years. And so they were thinking it through at that moment. They weren't doing anything official, but they were thinking it through about what are we going to do without this temple? And then, oh, good news, this Persian guy is about to send us back. We'll go back, we'll rebuild our temple, everything will be okay. But some of them said, no, I'm kind of remembering what things were like during that period of unknown when we started reading this Torah and coming up with what happens with life after the temple. And so that's why let's call it starting around 0, or maybe even, around maybe even 10 BC, for like 70, 80 years prior to the destruction of the Second Temple, it was already in place. And that's why when the temple was just prior to being destroyed, Yochanan ben Zakkai says, give me Yavna and its sages. In other words, we got this stuff rattling through our brains already. Let's get down there and start writing some of this stuff down, or discussing it, talking it, teaching it, and then discussing it. All right, so we're a little bit, we only have a couple more small ones to do. So the second to last one, Jerusalem Talmud Moed Katan. This has to do with the subject of, are you allowed to leave Israel? You can come to Israel, can you leave? Right? It's like, what is it? Decon. Roaches come in, they check in, but they don't check out.
Karen and Jim know that?
Right. Right. So Jim and Karen, as you're watching this on stream, sorry. Anyway, unless you've got Rabbi Yochanan there to help you, because Rabbi Yochanan said, if you were nominated for the city council, may the Jordan be the master of your border. What's that supposed to mean? We'll get to that in a second. Rabbi Yochanan also said, one complains to the government to be freed from the city council. What's that mean? All right, let's figure it out. So, city council. There was no government in these towns. There was a city council, and the city council was made up of wealthy people. And the wealthy people were in charge of handling personally all of the public utility kind of things that happen. And so to be on the city council was a very expensive job. You were paying a ton of money. And so it was not a good thing to be on the city council. Meanwhile, and what Yochanan had said, if you were nominated for the city council, therefore you knew you were about to have to be spending a ton of money on the community. May the Jordan be the master of your border. You can go across the Jordan and leave Israel. I'm giving you an out. I'm giving you an out if they nominated you for the city council. And then he also says, and one who complains to the government that's another way of getting free to the city. Like, he's throwing another one in. Like, if you come off being a complainer, they're probably not going to want to put you on the city council either. It was like, he gave you a reason that you could leave in Israel, and then he gave you oh, by the way, just in case you're wondering, here's another good way to get off the city council. You know what? If you don't want to leave Israel, you really want to stay, you believe in it, okay, then just be a complainer. And that'll keep you off the city council too, because no one wants to work with a nudge, with a kvetch. All right, so the last one is just about his death. Yochanan, when he was departing from the world, said to those who needed to tend to him, bury me in garments dyed green, not white and not black. So if I stand among the righteous, we will not be shamed, and if I stand amongst the wicked, we will not be disgraced. In other words, he's like, he didn't know. He was kind of humble enough to not be certain if he was going to be standing with the righteous or with the wicked. And so he's like, I don't want to bring shame upon our community and suggest that I should have been with the righteous when I was with the wicked and then have been kind of overconfident, or suggest that I should be with the wicked and not when I should have been with the righteous, and therefore kind of condemn our people to, look, this great rabbi is, thought he was wicked. And so in other words, he's like, it's like too risky of a proposition for me. There's no good answer here. And so therefore, put me in green garments, so therefore no one will be able to judge me.
Tweener.
Exactly right. So I won't bring shame on our people in either direction.
A quick question.
Yeah.
Is he saying, I stand among the righteous, are the righteous in this case the literalists?
No. He's just talking about, there's this metaphoric concept of the good people or the bad people, and he wants to be in the right place.
Suspiciously like heaven and hell.
Suspiciously like heaven and hell, yes.
Which we don't, it's suspiciously like heaven and hell.
Which there is.
So,
We just don't say those words, and that's kind of the way we articulate it.
right.
Well, I'm standing with the righteous, standing with the wicked, not like the fiery furnaces of hell and stuff like that, but it's just kind of like, who am I hanging out with when I die?
But it suggests a judgment to decide.
But that's not
It's
unusual.
within
What do you
the
think
power.
Yom Kippur is all about?
Well, yeah.
We're judged all the time. But anyway, Karen and Jim, please do not leave the state of Israel because you're not allowed to, unless, of course, they're about to ask you to be a city collector, or city council.
Have to be on the
Then again, if you just want to be a kvetch to your people, then that'll probably keep you up. Also, hope you're not in a bomb shelter as you're watching this. And for the rest of you, thanks for being here. And I think we're on for next week.
And whatever
We
you
are
do,
for